ever notice how you come across somebody once in a while you shouldn't have messed with? That's me.
I am not an African American.
You're an Oreo cookie, white in the inside and black on the outside.
I don't have an afro, I have an Amerifro.
Talking that idiotic stuff you talk about, I would slap you. Go ahead. Make my day.
Black as the ace of spades, but 100% American.
Heard around the world by everybody and their mama. The Jesse Lee Peterson Radio Show.
Uniting the races with truth instead of dividing them with lies. We're also rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you so much for being with me. If you missed the first 2 hours of the show today, you owe it to yourself, to your consciousness, to podcast the show. It was more than a notion. But for now, I have with me a lady that I'm glad to meet and glad to know. Kay Painter is with me. Her book is From Sin and Sorrow to Service, and it's about her life and what she went through as a result of having an abortion. Isn't that amazing? And she's gonna be giving away a couple of her books to the first two callers, I believe, 2 or 3 callers here. Kay, good morning and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Good morning, Jesse. Have a blessed morning.
Thank you. You too. Very, very interesting book. I saw your story online, and I also have read about it in the book. And it takes all I have not to feel really, really sorry for you, but I know that you've overcome and you're doing well, and there's no need to feel sorry for you. But I do have great compassion for you in what you went through as a result of having an abortion. Tell the folks how old you were and how did your decision come about to have an abortion?
I was 39, married, really had no excuses other than the basic one that everyone uses, and it's because it's inconvenient and it's not in my plan. I thought I had the flu. We had opened a new flower shop, and I went to the doctor to get something for my flu. When he announced I was pregnant, I said, that can't be. I was told I couldn't have children. I even adopted the second child because you guys told me I couldn't get pregnant. Well, you are. And I said, what am I going to do with a child at this age, which I don't think was an abnormal response after being told you couldn't have a baby.
Right.
But the lady who was standing watching the exam in the corner made a remark that changed my life. And she said, well, gee, lucky for you. You don't have to have this. It's not a baby yet. It's just a clump of cells, and we can take care of it in just a couple appointments. You can be on your way and, quote, never think about it again.
You got married at a very young age, so when this decision was made, you were already married.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And how did your husband feel about you? Did he make the decision along with you to have this abortion?
No. He was almost against it, but he really didn't stand up and say no. He just said, well, whatever you want, it's okay. But the problem was I went ahead because that's what I wanted. It wasn't in God's plan, but it was what I wanted. And hence, every time we would argue after the abortion, he would always remind me I killed his child.
Wow. What were your thoughts prior to you having an abortion about abortion? Do you remember?
I was neutral. I mean, it didn't affect me. I would never have that problem. And if my children ever got to that point, we'd discuss it. So, no, I guess if you don't do anything, you're pro-choice. If you don't stand up for life, you're automatically, now in my book, you're automatically pro-choice.
And so you get pregnant and you decide, well, I'm going to have this abortion. Did you go to an abortion clinic?
No.
What happened?
It was at a regular doctor's facility, although I don't now call him a doctor.
So a regular doctor convinced you to have an abortion?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Really?
Oh, yes.
I was under the impression it was one of the so-called abortion doctors.
Well, apparently he was, but he had a doctor's and he had a regular office.
Okay, so what happened? Go tell us from that point.
Okay, there were 2 appointments which they set up, and again, I asked many times, is it a baby yet? And I was assured there was no life. It was just cells multiplying, which looking back now doesn't make sense. Nothing multiplies unless it's alive.
Right.
However, they keep telling you it's just a clump of cells. It is not a baby. We can hurry and get this taken care of. There were 2 appointments. The first one I went in for counseling. My counseling was I was sat at a metal table with 2 chairs, and no windows, no trees, no plants. Pretty soon a lady came in, sat down, flopped open a file in front of me and said, okay, your name is Kay. Yes. And you are married, and your husband knows you're here. Yes. And you know that we're discussing an abortion, right? Yes. With that, she flipped the paper around, pushed it across the table at me, handed me a pen, and my little girl, S.A.R.A. Marie, had no chance. After that, they put me in a gown, and I can remember standing in front of a mirror. Of all the dumb things, they had a mirror in the little dressing room, and I had to change into a gown because I was having a saline solution abortion. And I remember standing there and holding my hand on my tummy and thinking, if you're going to change your mind, you better change it now. After thinking about it a minute, it was like, well, it's not life yet. It's inconvenient. It doesn't fit into my plan. So I put the gown on, went down the hall, and crawled upon their table, their metal table. Upon that, they inserted me with saline solution, which is a salt solution. They don't really use it too much anymore because they have decided it is very inhumane. What it basically does is it burns the flesh of the child and kills it in a matter of 24 hours.
I was standing in front. When I read your story, it reminded me when I was once out protesting an abortion mill in my area, and a little 15-year-old black girl was on her way in on a Saturday morning to have an abortion, and I told her not to, that we would adopt a baby, and she said it was too late because she had gone in a couple of days prior, and they had injected this saline solution. That's the first time I heard of saline solution, but they had, injected into a woman's womb, right?
Yes.
So she said they injected this into her and told her it wasn't going to hurt, it's not going to, she won't even notice. But she said her baby was, grasping for life, kicking and carrying on. And then the baby eventually died. And she was 15 years old, and she was shocked. And she's much older now, and she's still traumatized by that. She has so much guilt.
If you know how to reach her, I'd love to give her a copy of my book because I know exactly where she's at. Yes, that is true, and you don't suffer any pain. What they don't tell you is the pain that the baby suffers. I wasn't supposed to get pregnant, so I didn't really know, but after it was all over, I was told I was at least 4 to 4.5 months pregnant. So the next day, 2 days later, that was on a Thursday. On Wednesday, I came back on Friday, and again I put on the gown, and again I marched down the hall, and again I crawled on their metal table. I don't remember much about the extraction itself. I do know I was forced into labor. And after the extraction of the cells, they never call it a baby. In the clinics, it's just cells. It's just the object. It's just a clump of cells, something. But they never, ever use the word baby because that would alert you to really what you're doing.
Yes.
So I crawled on the table, and after the extraction, they made the mistake of walking past my bed thinking I was still too drowsy and throwing her burnt body into a trash can at the head of my table.
Wow. That's amazing. And you happened to see this body?
Yes.
And they just threw it into a trash can or something?
Yes.
Like that?
Yes.
Oh, my God. And you have this abortion. They bring the baby out. They assume that you were drowsy and were not aware. So you see them throw this baby into the trash, right? Trash
That's
can.
correct. Yes.
And you hear the thud.
Yes.
And that traumatized you.
Yeah, I went hysterical. And I still to this day, this has been 30-some years ago, I still to this day can't sometimes tell the story without clouding up. But there's a good ending, and I hope we have time to share the good part, too.
We will, but let me just ask, when you opened your eyes and you saw what did you see exactly?
What did I see? I saw a formed small little child, just very small, but I saw it formed. And it was all dried up and withered. It had been burnt. Not like flesh burnt, but just dried up because the saline solution just burns the flesh.
Right.
I went hysterical. I started screaming, and the lady that was assisting, and I will not call her a nurse, the lady that was assisting told me to be quiet. I'm scaring the other people, and if you don't be quiet, I'll have to sedate you. Well, I couldn't stop screaming if my life depended on it, so she did give me a shot and sent me home. After that, they have nothing to do with you. If you have bleeding problems, if you have emotional problems, they could care less. They've got your money, they've taken your baby, and you are on your own. And for years, I struggled with that thud.
Give us examples of what you went through, and I know you write about it in your book. As a result of the trauma, how did your life change?
I had gone to church all my life. Now, God wouldn't want a murderer in his home, so I did not go. I had a real good relationship with my 2 older daughters that were now teenagers. I pushed them away, not knowing that I was doing it, but how can you love 2 children after you've killed a third? My husband and I fought, and he always reminded me that I had killed our child. I would go to bed at night saying, God, just forgive me. Is there any way you can forgive me? Knowing that I had done the absolute unforgivable. And in the nights, many nights, for years, I would wake up hearing the thud of that baby's body again and again hitting the garbage can, in which case I would get on my knees at the foot of the bed and ask God, please, please, please forgive me. If there's anything I can do, if there's any way, let me be forgiven. Let me out of this. Can I have another child? I'll be a good mommy this time. I promise I won't kill it. Please. About a year and a half later, I did conceive another child, which was a miracle because I wasn't supposed to have children, and I had killed S.A.R.A. So that was a miracle, too. So I received my son, and I really believe God had heard my prayer because I had asked him to please, please, please let me have a chance, and he did. The problem was, at that point, I believed I was forgiven, but the pattern of my life, the isolation that I felt, the way I pushed people away, my habits had changed. I didn't get close to anyone. I hated myself.
You say that you even got rid of your old friends because you didn't want them to know about the abortion, right?
I was afraid they would discover what I did, yes. So I made new friends that if they should discover what I did, they would be more accepting. But my pattern of my life did not change, even after he gave me my son. All the things that had happened that day that started in my life, nothing changed, and I claimed I was healed. And I think many women are like that. They believe they're healed, but yet down deep inside there's still a self-loathing, a low self-esteem, a guilt, a shame. And the problem I found when I did go to church, and I find many women that will agree with me on this, they sat in church waiting for a minister to say, anything can be forgiven, even an abortion.
Yeah.
Because I believed I had gone so far beyond God's reach. I was condemned. I was useless. And we sit there with our makeup on and our hair done and a smile on our face, just begging God, please, have him talk about abortion. Have him tell me there's an answer. Have him tell me there's a way I can get rid of this pain and this guilt that I carry. I don't like my life the way it is. I even tried to commit suicide twice.
Amazing. Did you ever talk to your pastor or anybody about it in private?
No, not at that time. I was too ashamed. I didn't talk to anyone. That word never came out of my mouth.
Amazing. How many years went past before you were able to overcome this trauma or guilt that you had brought upon yourself by judging yourself?
Mine was a rather short one. It was only 16 years.
That's a long time.
It's a long time. There's a lot of wasted years that the enemy took from me.
I also read that when you finally had your son, you felt guilty about having him because whenever you would look at him or handle him, you would think of the one that you killed.
That's correct. That child is never out of your mind, ever. You can push it back in the back. But until you actually deal with what you have done and accept your responsibility and understand that if you ask for repentance, you got it. The problem is you can't forgive yourself.
You talk about how you handled your son, too, as a result of the guilt. I believe you said you overdone it. You over-mothering him.
Yes, that is very typical of a woman who's had an abortion and has another child. They do one of two things. They are terrifically overprotective because this one they're not going to let anything happen to, which is what I did. Or they find they cannot bond with it because of the guilt. There's two responses. And ladies, if you have had an abortion and had a second child, I ask you to remember or look back on your pattern and see which one of those two you fit. because God can heal all that and restore everything that the enemy has taken from you.
You know, and may I hold you over for another segment, because I want to tell the folks how you were able to overcome, and also how to get your book.
I would love to, because I don't want to leave this as it is. I want to let them know there's hope. Absolutely.
That's right. I do too. But let me ask, you were 30, did you say 36?
39.
You were 39 years old. At the age of 39, you didn't already know, your common sense didn't tell you that this is a baby?
You know, I think down deep we all know it is, but you know how it is when you want something done, or you want something accomplished, or you don't want something, you can justify almost anything.
Yes. Isn't that amazing that the mind can do that? You know that it's wrong, but it can convince you that it's okay, or that it is something else.
And I think whether it's alcohol, abortion, adultery, whatever it is, it is sin. And we know it when we get into it, but once we're in it and that relief comes, or that joy comes for the first little bit of your sin, there's always that enjoyment part, and then comes the payment and the guilt later on after the enemy's caught you. That
is an amazing thing to me. I was thinking last night, and I was going to ask my engineer about this. I think there are many most interesting things in life, but one of the most interesting things in life about life is that we do things that we don't want to do. It looks as though there's something within us that convinces us to do wrong, and then once you do wrong, it kind of steps aside and lets you judge yourself, which brings on guilt. Then you ask God for help, and God doesn't look like he's helping you because you have this guilt, not realizing you have judged yourself, and God did not judge you.
That's absolutely right. He's willing, but we don't let him.
That's right. Let me take a quick break. When I come back, we're going to tell you, Kay will tell you how to get her book, and also how to be free. Back in a moment. Kay Painter is with me. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you so much for being with me. From Sin and Sorrow to Service is her brand new book. And she talks about the abortion that she had and the guilt and pain that she went through as a result of it. And she became free. And she talks about how she became free of the guilt. Kay, we have about 5 minutes here together. Tell the folks how you became free, because there are a lot of women out there who would love to be free of the guilt of having an abortion.
First of all, the first time you cried out to God and asked for forgiveness with your whole heart, he heard you and he accepted that and has forgotten about it.
That's
your
right.
Your sins are as far from the east as from the west. The trick is you have to forgive yourself. You have to realize you made a mistake, and you have to turn to him. I can assure you, ladies, if you read this book, there's so much more than abortion. There is adultery. There is finding out my children were molested because of my mistakes. There's so much in here. I guarantee you there will be something that will touch you.
Yeah.
But I want you to know, whatever you have done, wherever you are today, I don't care how deep down you feel useless. I don't care how far down you think you've sunk. Let me assure you beyond a shadow of a doubt right this minute, and listen closely. God's arm is never so short that he cannot reach down and when he hears your cry, pick you up and pull you out of whatever you're in. The secret is you have to allow him to do it. You have to accept the gift that you do not earn, that you could never pay for, and that's called forgiveness and grace.
I think, Kay, what a lot of people don't realize, the moment that you see and admit that you're wrong, in that very moment, God forgives you, and he's done with it. He doesn't even remember it anymore.
No.
But the problem is people still listen to the
The enemy.
Satan in their heads. They listen to his voice, and he convinces them that they are not free, that God has not forgiven them. So people got to learn the difference between the voice of the Prince of Darkness and the voice of God.
I think we know the difference, but we find it easier to believe that we're unredeemable than to believe a God who is so loving and so wonderful could ever restore us. And believe me, he can. I'm a living proof, and I've seen hundreds of others.
And so you are 100% free of guilt and shame and all of that stuff now.
I will always feel regret for what I did to S.A.R.A. Yes.
And you
But as far as
name your
being
baby.
guilt, I turned my misery into a ministry, and God did that for me.
Yes. And you name your baby S.A.R.A.?
Yes, and S.A.R.A., and it stands for Sharing Again, Restoring Another. And when God gave me this ministry, I honored her by naming the ministry after her, and that's what my goal is, to share again and restore someone else.
Well, I have to tell you, it is a compelling book. And as you said, we didn't even touch on the other information that's in the book. Every bit of it will help somebody in one form or another, that's for sure. It was well done, and you learn a lot about human nature by reading your book. Tell the people how to get it.
Okay, it's readily available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and ebook. And as well, I have a website called Remembering S.A.R.A., no H in it, .org. The ministry has given me, he has opened doors by his hand and his hand alone, and I have traveled to 23 international tours. I've been in the White House. I've been to the United Nations. I've spoken to heads of parliament in Australia. God is a God who wants to take your pain and turn it into something that you can use. That's what he does.
Yep.
Look at the Bible. In the Old Testament and the New, he didn't take the good, righteous people. He took the people that were really screwed up.
Yep.
And once they turned their life over to him, he changed everything. And he wants to do that for you, right there where you are, right now. Just accept what he has to offer you.
That is the truth, so help me God. That is absolutely true. How are your children doing now?
My children are, I say they're wonderful. They're all married. They all have children of their own and families. As I moved, they seemed to move with me, which was a very great blessing. And I say they are walking with the Lord, and they are training their children up as they should, every single one of them. And they are doing it in spite of their mother, not because of it. Because when you read this book, you're going to know that I made a whole bunch of messes.
That's for sure. You're a good witness of God, and I definitely appreciate you. And I wish you well, S.A.R.A. Kate Painter. Thank you so much for coming on with me.
Thank you for this chance. I hope I have an opportunity to come back.
Yeah, you will. Thank you.
All right.
All right now.
God bless.
You too. Thanks. 888-7753-773.